Right now, as you're watching this, an algorithm could be deciding if you qualify for a home loan, what your health insurance is going to cost, or even your risk level in a courtroom. See, AI isn't just helping us anymore, it's quickly becoming the nervous system of our entire society. So, what happens when that system is built on a legacy of bias? Well, today, we're not just going to talk about what went wrong. We're going to go deeper and dissect how we can actually fix it. So, how do we build a nervous system that's fair by design? Let's dive into the blueprint. This quote, it just cuts right to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? I think the biggest myth about AI is that it's purely logical. It's not. An AI is basically a mirror. And if you show it a reflection of a biased world, it's going to automate that bias at a scale and speed no human ever could. This is the flaw in the code that we have to tackle head on. And this isn't some science fiction, far-off future stuff. From the moment you apply for a job to the way your neighborhood is policed, AI is already making these huge, high-stakes decisions that affect all of our lives. It's woven deep into the very fabric of our society, shaping opportunity and justice. So, this brings us to what I like to call the bias trap. It really begs the question, how does a tool that's built on pure logic and mathematics so often end up just reflecting our oldest, most human prejudices? Let's unpack how this actually happens.
And look, these impacts are incredibly real. We have seen major companies scrap their AI recruiting tools because they learned to systematically penalize resumes from women. And in criminal justice, predictive policing creates this dangerous feedback loop. It tells officers to go to historically over-policed minority neighborhoods, which leads to more arrests, which then just proves to the algorithm that its original bias was correct. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, all written in code.
This right here is the #1 cause of the problem. Just imagine training an AI on decades of old loan approval data where certain groups were just systematically denied credit. The AI doesn't learn what makes someone a good or bad credit risk. Nope, it just learns to copy the past, basically automating historical discrimination and locking out qualified people today. And here's where it gets really, really subtle. You might think, okay, easy fix, let's just remove sensitive data like race or gender. But the AI is actually smart enough to find proxies. It can learn that a certain zip code or something as random sounding as your taste in music is a strong stand-in for race or your income level. So it just reconstructs the very bias you tried to hide. It's an incredibly sneaky problem. Okay, so if the problem is this complicated, where do we even start to solve it? Well, we can't just cross our fingers and hope AI turns out to be fair. We have to engineer it to be fair. This section is all about what we call hard guardrails, the technical tools that developers can use. This isn't about having better intentions, it's about writing better code and having way better processes. So this lays out a really clear game plan for building fairness into the whole process. You can jump in at any stage. You can pre-process the data before training even begins, rebalance it so the AI gets a more accurate picture of the world. Then, during training, you can use special algorithms that literally have fairness rules baked into their math. And even after a decision is made, you can use post-processing to tweak the results and make sure the outcomes are fair across the board. And I think a huge takeaway here is that building ethical AI isn't some one-and-done fix. It is a continuous cycle. Just like this diagram shows, you have to start by defining what's ethical from day one, design the system with those values from the jump, and then, and this is so important, you have to constantly monitor it after it's out in the wild to make sure it stays trustworthy. Now, this is a really fascinating concept called adversarial debiasing. Think of it like this. You're training a second AI to be a bias police AI. Its only job is to try and find discrimination in the main model. And every time it finds bias, it penalizes the main model, forcing it to literally unlearn that prejudice. It's an amazing way to build fairness right into the system by having AIs audit each other. So all those technical fixes are absolutely crucial, but they're really only half the story. On their own, they're just not enough. We also need the human element, the regulations, to build real accountability. This is about policy, oversight, and breaking open that black box of AI so we can actually understand why it's making the decisions it's making. And what we're seeing now is this massive shift in how we govern these systems. For years, all we had were these vague, aspirational ideas like AI should be fair. But now we are moving toward enforceable laws with real teeth. Big regulations like the EU's AI Act are setting binding legal requirements. So the era of the computer said so being an acceptable answer, well, that's finally coming to an end. And this is why explainable AI, or XAI, is becoming totally non-negotiable. The idea is simple. We should be able to get a digital receipt for every major automated decision. If you're denied a loan, the system has to be able to show you a human-readable map of exactly what factors led to that outcome. The new rule is simple. If you can't explain the why, you don't get to deploy the how. So what does this actually look like in terms of policy? Well, it really breaks down into these three pillars. First, before an AI even gets launched, it has to go through an algorithmic impact assessment, basically a stress test to see who it might harm. Second, for the really critical decisions, a human expert has to be in the loop to give the final sign-off. The AI becomes a co-pilot, not the judge. And finally, these systems have to be audited constantly, because bias can creep back in over time. So what does this all add up to? Well, it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for a future where fairness is a feature, not a bug. It's about a shift towards designing technology that actually reflects our best ideals, not our worst historical baggage.
This quote just perfectly sums up this whole conversation. Fairness doesn't just happen by default. It takes deliberate, proactive, systematic work. It has to be engineered into these systems right from the very beginning. It's a choice we have to consciously make as designers, as developers, and, well, as a society.
And that leaves us with a really critical question for our future. Designing ethical AI isn't just about better math. It's about writing our values into code. Technology can optimize our services, for sure, but only we can define what fairness really looks like. So, should we always require a path for a human appeal, a plan B for when the algorithm inevitably gets it wrong? I'm really curious to hear what you think.